Live from the studios of News Talk Radio 580 CFRA, downtown in the heart of the Byward Market. Welcome to Sunday Night. Here's Rabbi Bulka.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our program. And we have a very interesting guest with us tonight, except that she is not in studio. She's smart. She's in Florida, where it is a little bit warmer than it is here. But I hope that the warmth of where this very unique guest is will come through in our conversation. So it's a very great pleasure to welcome to our program Roslyn Franken. Roslyn, welcome.
Hi, Rabbi Bulka. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know. It's a pleasure to be where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're down in Florida, soaking up the sun.
You don't want to know the weather here. It's beautiful.
Oh, I like the cold.
Really?
I love it. Yeah.
I don't.
Okay. So we each are where we like to be.
Exactly.
That is perfect. And through the magic of the telephone, we can link up. By the way, I hear that you have your own radio program.
I do. I have a radio show on the internet called How to Thrive After 35.
Now, that leads me to believe that have you hit that already? You're not allowed to say. But,
yes, I am.
Did you do it because it sounded poetic, How to Thrive After 35? When you hit 45, it's going to be How to Thrive After 45, or what?
You know, it's funny that you say that because 45 is after 35. 35, I just mean by 35 plus.
Oh, so it's going all the way up to 120.
Absolutely.
Or, according to the information that I have from some very important cardiologists, to 160, because they think that within the next little while, life expectancy is going to zoom up to 160.
Well, you know what? Who knows? And if you take good care of yourself, who knows what's possible? And
people who may not know you, there are certain things about you that we should share, and you're very open about them, so it's not as if I'm giving away any secrets. But you have not had what anyone would call an easy life. You've had a major challenge that came to you when you were 29 years old. And so I know a lot of times that people say, hey, it's easy for you to give advice because what do you know? I mean, you're a young kid and you're telling us what to do. What do you know about life? But I think that in your instance, you can answer that question, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately that you're around and you've overcome, but you had to overcome. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Rabbi Bulka, when I was 29 years old, I was told three of the scariest words you can ever hear come out of a doctor's mouth when he said, you have cancer. I mean, who expects that when you're 29 years old, right?
Mm.
So, going through that cancer experience was life-changing, to say the least, especially at that age, because you're young, you're full of hopes and dreams for your future, and the last thing that you expect is cancer. So going through that taught me a lot about myself and about life, and it was only years later that it really played a role in really recognizing my whole approach to life, like putting the pieces of the puzzle together came through over years of how that really impacted me.
So you were wrestling, so the doctor said you have cancer, you fought it, you went through, I imagine, the usual rigmarole, chemo, radiation, whatever. But
yeah, I had 9 months of chemotherapy. I didn't have radiation, but I'll tell you, I'll never complain about a bad hair day again, because when you go through chemo and you lose all your hair, I'll tell you, any hair day is a good hair day now.
That's a very nice way of looking at it. But guys like me, we never have bad hair days because we don't have hair. Right. But in your instance, it changes the perspective, right? So if a hair is out of place, instead of complaining or being worried about it, you say, hey, what are you talking about? I have hair. So the fact that it's out of place is a blessing in real life.
Yeah, and you know what? You can use that as a metaphor for an approach to life. So what? You're having a bad hair day. It's how do you put things in perspective when you're going through tough times, you're having a bad day. It's all the spin that you put on it, right? So sometimes you need to go through some experiences in your life that can help shape you so that when you are faced with a difficult time, that you are better able to put a healthier, more positive perspective on it.
So you were wrestling with was it about a year from the time that you got those dreaded words till you basically were basically in the clear?
Yeah, it was pretty much a year but from the time of being, having a biopsy, wondering whether or not I had it, to getting the diagnosis, to starting and finishing the chemo, would probably have been a year.
Right, and I would imagine that thankfully you caught it early enough, obviously, right?
Yes, I was very, very fortunate in that I was able to get through it, and I'm clear today, cancer-free, living the healthiest, happiest life that I can, and that's what my whole mission now is to help other people do the same. How do you live a healthy, happy life? See,
that's really wonderful. I wanted people out there to know what it is that's really motivating you, because you were really, I can imagine, down in the dumps at 29 to have your entire life precariously dangling in front of you with not knowing, am I going to be around at the age of 30, never mind 60 or 70, and then to overcome. You see things, at least in terms of having survived this, and you probably have read books about people who have, let's say, had near-death experiences. Do you see yourself in the same light, like as you have been given a second chance? Who knows where it would have been, and now that I have this opportunity, I'm going to make the most of it. Is this a good description of where you are?
I think the near-death idea for me was really only at the beginning, at the time that I was diagnosed, where I thought, oh my God, like not knowing what was to come at that point, not knowing what kind of therapy I was going to have, or it was just that point of like being told, okay, that's it, you have cancer, and your appointment is in a week from now, and we'll let you know then what's going to happen. So it's in that not knowing time, when you're waiting for your next appointment, when you're in limbo, when you're waiting to hear back for tests, results, or something like that. It's that not knowing where it's the most difficult time. That's how it was for me. So at the start, it felt like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? How am I going to tell my parents?
Right.
How am I going to tell my mother, who was going through cancer treatments at the same time? That was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do, was to tell her. I mean, after what my mom has been through in her life, she's been through a lot. To have to tell her that her daughter has cancer, that was heartbreaking.
Wow. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about that. We're talking to Roslyn Franken, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation. And our numbers, by the way, 613-521-8255, star 580 and Bell Mobility, a free call, 800-580-2372, is a toll-free number. We also have email, which I hope will work today, rbulka@cfra.com. And we'll be back right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our program, and our number is 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility. It's a free call. 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number, which is also a free call, and rbulka@cfra.com is our email address. We're just getting warmed up in our conversation with Roslyn Franken, who is a motivational speaker, personal coach, host of the popular How to Thrive After 35 radio show, best-selling author of the A-List, 9 Guiding Principles for Eating Healthy and Positive Living, and she's also a very interesting person. So, how did you tell your mother? Now, I'm not prying because of anything more than the fact that there's so many other people who may be in this circumstance and they're wondering, I wonder what she did. Because your mother, let's go backwards a little bit. Your mother is a Holocaust survivor.
Yes, she is.
So the fact that she had you, in the context, it's miraculous. In the concentration camps, people didn't think that there would ever be a day that they would get out, never mind getting married and having children. So you were a miracle baby, I would imagine.
I was a miracle baby. I mean, my mom survived the concentration camps in Germany, and my dad was a prisoner of war in Nagasaki, Japan, and was one of the few remaining atomic bomb survivors. So the fact that those two people came together and that I'm here is exactly, as you say, a miracle.
That's an incredible thing. And your father, he was actually there when the bombs were dropped?
Yes, he was.
How did he manage to get out unscathed without any radio?
Just a few months before the bomb went off, he was in the coal mines. He was transferred to the coal mines. So he was thousands of feet underground when the bomb went off. And only came up and saw the horrors of the aftermath, right? But he was there. He was there. And here I am.
So this was a real when you were approaching your mom with this was with trepidation.
It was immense trepidation. I mean, I had to tell her, but it was difficult. It was difficult because she was going through cancer at the same time, and as I said earlier, after everything she'd been through in her life, the last thing I wanted to do was create any suffering for any more reason to suffer. But you know what? We got through it together. We got through it together, and she was an incredible role model for me in terms of what I call that never give up fighting spirit. And I would like to think that I inherited that. I inherited that from her, and knowing how my parents survived horrors that we can't even imagine. So for me, it meant the world to have her as that role model. But telling her, I had to just be honest and tell her where I was at and what was happening, and if anybody in the world could understand how I was feeling and what I was going through, it would be her.
By the way, Roslyn, before we continue our conversation, we have a call from someone who identifies himself as a big fan of yours.
Oh.
Yeah, so let's take the call from Jason in Ottawa. Jason, welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Did you know Jason?
Yes, I do. Jason is my stepson.
Oh, how do you like that, Maple?
I am so honored.
Jason, did you know that your stepmom was going to be on?
I found out pretty last minute, so my girlfriend and I ensured that we tuned in, and we've been listening.
That's great. Great.
So we just wanted to call in and say that how proud we are of Roz, and we know everything. She has a great story, and it's really good that you got her on the air.
Okay, and thank you. And just a second, you're in Ottawa, and your stepmom is in Florida. So who's the smart one?
I think it's going to be her.
Okay. But thank you a lot for calling. That's very nice. I think you made her day.
Excellent.
That made my day in more ways than you can imagine.
Good. I'm glad.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Jason, for calling.
I'm so touched.
Great.
I'm verklempt.
Verklempt. This, by the way, for those who have not, verklempt basically means you're overwhelmed, overcome, speechless, things like that. Okay.
I couldn't resist using that word.
Right. Jason, thanks for calling. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so Jason is your stepson, and he's living in Ottawa.
Yes, he is.
Right. So
that was a really nice surprise.
Do you have any advice for people on, for example, how to tell this to a loved one? I guess there's no really good way, because bad news is bad news, and you can't sugarcoat it. But I guess the best way is just to be direct without being insensitive.
Well, sometimes it's I don't want to say harder, but it's a hard experience the people around you as well, because they don't know how to react. They don't know what to say. It's very shocking, especially, at a young age, right? You don't expect it.
Right.
But advice, what can I say? But other than, if you have a good, healthy, strong relationship with this person you love, to tell them and allow them into your world, and to me, it is a gift to them to allow them to be there for you.
Right.
Have that support, because oftentimes people who go through cancer, sometimes they isolate themselves, or they're afraid to tell people. They don't want people to know, and they don't reach out for that help and support, which can make all the difference in the world in terms of how you get through that experience.
That's a very important point, because loneliness leads to depression. Depression is the last thing in the world you need when you need to have all your strength and all of your emotional energy to fight. And if you're in a depressed state, you're not fighting, you're more likely to be giving up. So the idea of having people around you that encourage you, that you have encouraged to be with you, to encourage you, is absolutely critical.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. And it was through that experience that I started to develop the principles that I share now with the work I do in my book and everything I do that revolves around these principles that have to do with positive living.
Right.
I talk a lot about healthy eating, but it's the positive living piece that is so important. How do you manage those negative emotions? Because I could have easily been sucked into being a victim and, throwing myself a big old pity party for 9 months of chemotherapy, poor me, be stuck in that fear and anxiety and stress that would be a natural reaction, of course. But all those negative emotions and things, what they do is they suck away the positive energy that you need to fight your fight. And they also lower your immune system. And when you're going through cancer, when you're going through something like that, your immune system is your gold. You've got to treat that like your treasure. So allowing those negative emotions to come in is only going to hurt you.
A hypothetical question. Had you not had cancer at 29, where was your career going at that time?
Oh, my goodness. Where was my career going? Were
you in Florida then?
No, and I didn't have a career. I did not have a career at the age of 29. At the age of 29, I was just doing jobs. I was just doing whatever came my way. I didn't have a clear path, and I'm sure there's lots of people listening who can identify with that you do a job because it's a job. It was a job you were able to get at the time. You saw an ad in the paper or something like that, but your heart and soul is not in it. And it took me a long time to figure out what that was. And actually, the job I had when I was 29, I ended up losing that job 2 years later, and that was the first time of 3 times that I was downsized from jobs in a 10-year period. So that's kind of what threw me into the world of self-employment and said, you know what, I got to grab the bull by the horns and do my own thing because, I don't want to be downsized again. That's very stressful, too, and I thought the next person who downsizes me is me. And here I am, doing what I love.
So interestingly, if you look back, would you say that the cancer at 29 was in some, I don't want to make light of it, but insofar as where you went afterwards, you turned it into a positive?
Absolutely. And 10 years later, after having cancer, when I got on the scale at age 39 and saw that I was at my heaviest weight.
Oh, wait, we're going to go to that soon. We're talking. Well, that's the other type of downsizing.
That's another type of downsizing.
Yeah,
but just
right.
to say that other changes that I had to make, we'll leave it at that. Other changes that I had to make later on in my life, I was able to look back and say, what was it that allowed me to get through my cancer? How do I tap back into that place that I was in my mindset, in my emotional state, that I need to get back to in terms of how I approach change and adapting and being flexible and coming out on top, being on top of my game.
Got it. So we're going to this is a good point to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to come to Roslyn's own downsizing, as you put it. The next time I downsize, I'm going to do it myself, and you actually did. Our number is 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility, a free call. 800-580-2372, our toll-free number, and rbulka at CFRA.com. CFRA.ca, I'm sorry. CFRA.ca, I think, is our email address. We're back right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to our great technician, I found out that's rbulka at CFRA.com. Thank you. 613-521-8255 is our main number. Star 580 on Bell Mobility is a free call, but only if you're on the Bell Mobility system. And 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number. And we are in the midst of conversation with a very interesting lady. Her name is Roslyn Franken. She is smart enough to be in Florida. She has her own radio program. Tell me, Roslyn, how does that radio program work? It's a internet? What's the technology?
People just go to howtothriveafter35talkradio.com.
Right.
And people can listen. They can listen in to the interviews. They can download them to your computer. It's right there. It's not streaming. So
how does it work?
Like,
do you have times when you have the program on? Like, for example, would you let's say from 10 to 11 every morning you have a radio show? Or how does it exactly work?
It's more like a podcast. So the shows are pre-recorded, and so they're up there and available for people at any time, and they can go back and look at the previous shows and go to them any time. So it's not a specific time like your show.
So you can actually podcast this show and put it on your internet, right?
I certainly can. I'm hoping to do that.
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, so I better be careful what I say.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So you made up that after you were the victim of downsizing, that to put it in your own words, I think we're very poetic. He says, the next time I'm going to be downsizing, it's going to be myself doing it.
Yeah, it's going to be myself downsizing me. I was thinking of employment, but right. I also downsized in other ways too.
Right. So that was 10 years after the cancer, like at 39.
Yeah.
So you realized that you were very heavy.
Yeah.
Now, I should tell you something. I have in front of me your before and after pictures, and you may have seemed heavy, but I've seen lots of people that are much heavier than you. So, I mean, it didn't seem as if you were obese. It was just that you were probably carrying a little more weight than you wanted. I
was going down a really bad path because, genetically speaking, I have a lot of family who are overweight. Excuse me, family who are overweight, and it's, if you want to say that part of it can be hereditary. Mm-hmm. I was certainly following that path, and here I was going into my 40s, and when you go into your 40s, when it comes to weight, it does not get any easier to get the weight off, especially for women. So I stood there and thought, okay, here I am. At my heaviest weight, I wasn't obese, I wasn't 300 pounds, but for me, it was my heaviest weight, and I was getting heavier. And I thought, my mother had just passed away from cancer a few months before that. Oh, my dad's had quintuple bypass surgery, and for God's sakes, I'd already lost my health to cancer. So I stood there going, how much more weight do I need to gain? What else needs to happen to kick me into action and say, enough is enough? Mm-hmm. And that's how it happens. So when you see that before and after picture, I mean, I like the after better.
Well, very understandable. But how much did you lose?
It was only about 50, 60 pounds. I wish I would have known the day that I got on the scale that I would be doing this for a living, as part of what I do. Part of what I do is helping people with weight management, but I had no clue that I'd be doing that for a living. I mean, when that picture was taken, if somebody would have told me that I would have written a book about healthy eating and positive living and be speaking to groups of people on this topic, I would have laughed my head off.
Right, but in other words, you weren't even close to that at that point in time.
No.
You were just, this was like between you and yourself.
That's right.
I have weight to lose. So take us through your mindset, what you did. Because you realized that you had a problem and you had to tackle it. But firstly, there's a plethora of, shall we say, programs around, each one promising we'll get the weight off you and we'll keep it off. I don't know how many years ago this was, but if I judge by today, you can't be on TV watching for more than 15 minutes without having somebody in your face with, we got the program for you. Or you open up a magazine, they have a program for you, a radio program, wherever it is you're going. It's diets are the rage, and there are so many of them. So I guess the first thing you have to ask yourself is, where am I going?
Yes, and I should add in here that when that timing was also, from a professional standpoint, I had actually just graduated from Concordia with a master's degree in something called human systems intervention, which is really about how people self-learn and change. It's about change management. And I was also certified as a coach. And so I thought, how professionally can I work with people and help people set goals and achieve goals if I can't even take care of my own?
Good. Physician. This is the physician heal thyself.
Well, it's like when you see a cardiologist standing outside of the hospital, overweight and smoking. There's a disconnect. It's not what you want to see. It doesn't instill confidence. I mean, for me, I thought if I'm going to promote change for people and help people with their goals, then I want to be able to take care of my own. For me, it was important to practice what I preach and walk my talk.
Right, but you hadn't even become a coach yet. You had just gone through a school for that. But I
was just starting out. That was 8 years ago. I was just starting out in all this and trying to figure out what direction I was going to take. But I thought, I want to be healthy and strong, and Lord knows if you're self-employed, you better be healthy and strong because, it's not like I had the medical plan to rely on an X amount of sick days and I get a regular paycheck, right?
Right.
So your health is everything. And I just looked at, everything that I know in theory about self-learning and change and everything I know about every diet that I tried that never worked, I thought, what is the approach I'm going to take here? And the first thing I said is I needed to learn how to say no to the yo-yo, right?
Now, you want to do this thing where you gain a little bit, lose a little bit, up and down.
Oh my God, it's too hard. People are so busy that they're looking for the fastest and easiest solution, right? They just want to jump on the next bandwagon that sounds really good. This is going to get you fast and easy results. But fast and easy really takes longer and is harder in the long term.
Because if it's easy go, it's easy come again too, to begin with, all right?
Exactly. So I thought, you know what, I would rather do it slow and steady, do it smart, and not have to keep coming back to this problem every so many months or every year, which is typically what happens. People lose the weight, they feel great, they've lost all this weight, and everyone's telling them how good they look, and then you see the person a year later, and they put the weight back on. That's so discouraging and so disheartening, and I've done it, so I know what it's like, and of course, what do you do to feel better when you're at that point is you eat more because the food makes you feel good.
Right.
Completely self-defeating.
So you were in the quandary that probably millions of people today are in, judging by the market. And what program did you do? Was it you just used self-discipline?
I looked at what are the real underlying reasons for the choices that I was making. What was I doing that I was constantly sabotaging myself? what attitudes and beliefs did I have about myself and about food and about what a healthy lifestyle looks like? What was it that was holding me back from getting not just the results on the scale, but the results in my life so that I could sustain the weight loss, so that food was not a medication? What was I medicating myself from? We use food as a medication because it helps us calm down all those stress hormones that are coursing through our veins because we're so busy. Everybody's so busy. You ask anybody, so how are you doing? Like, oh my God, I'm so busy, or I'm so tired. I'm so tired and I'm so busy. Those are the two things you hear so much. But what are people so busy doing? They're so busy behaving like machines, trying to get everything done on their to-do list and problems to solve that they're neglecting their healthy eating. They're neglecting their healthful habits. They're not taking the time to step back and actually look at what they're doing. They're just reacting in the moment. It's all about immediate gratification, and that is what gets people stuck in this never-ending cycle of weight loss, weight gain, or not even just physical weight. But, you know, there's a lot of people who may not have a physical weight issue, but they're emotionally or mentally overweight.
I hear what you're saying. So you actually analyzed yourself?
Yeah.
And you came to the conclusion, what, you looked in the mirror and you said, we have met the enemy and they are us. Or you realized that nobody's going to help you do it. You got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and you got to get a hold of yourself. Give yourself a big shake, not a milkshake, but a real shake, and then start on a disciplined program. Is that what happened?
It is. I mean, I did a lot of inner work. So much of weight loss programs focuses on eat this, don't eat that, you know, very restrictive, very rigid menu plans and a very all or nothing approach. And I realized that, I realized that every time I'd done that in the past, I couldn't stick to it. It just wouldn't work for me. It just wasn't right. And I thought, you know what? And I don't want to be deprived. I don't want to have to restrict myself from my favorite foods. Like, am I going to do that for the rest of my life? No. So what's the point of doing it temporarily till I reach this target magic number on the scale and then start eating those foods again? Well, of course your weight's going to come back because you haven't changed the underlying habits. So to me,
we're going to leave you right there. Want to keep you hanging. We're going to take a break and come back and tell us exactly what you did when you came to that realization. We're talking to Roslyn Franken, and we're talking about one of the perennial issues that seems to bug so many people. It has to do with weight management and other things that are associated with it. Our number is 613-521-8255 is our main number. Star 580 on Bell Mobility. It's a free call, 800-580-2372, our toll-free number, rbulka@cfra.com. If you want to get in touch with us by email, and we welcome your calls. We'll be back right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our number is 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility, a free call, 800-580-2372. Also a free call on our toll-free number, and rbulka@cfra.com is our email address. And we're in the midst of conversation with Roslyn Franken. Roslyn, are you okay to continue after the 10 o'clock news?
Absolutely.
Great, good. So we left you hanging right when you came to the realization that you had to do something, right?
Yep.
So what did you then do?
Well, I started looking at all the reasons why I didn't have great success with the typical weight loss plans and programs out there. I over those years, I know I tried different things on and off. I even did the cabbage soup diet. Can you believe it? Like eating cabbage soup for I don't know how many days. I mean,
did you try the grapefruit diet?
You know, I probably did that one too. I did all kinds of crazy things. I mean, anybody who struggled with weight, I mean, you know, when I used to work for a book publisher, and distributing a book by Dr. Atkins, the high protein diet.
Right.
A lot of people are on that one. So a lot of the salespeople went on this diet, including me. I did it for about a week, eating nothing but meat and cheese and eggs and protein, and very, very little carbohydrates. And after a week, I thought, oh my God, this just doesn't seem right, and it didn't feel right. And I mentioned in my book about one of the people who actually went on that diet, and he woke up one morning and couldn't urinate. And he had basically shut his kidneys down because of that diet. So people don't realize that when you do a lot of these diets and they're unsupervised and they're not recommended by a physician, or you do anything like cleanses and things like this, that you're not 100% sure what it's doing to your system, you're taking a risk. And I just stopped. I just said, you know what, I want to eat real food, and I don't want to do any bars or pills or shakes, and I don't want to obsess about counting. I thought, what is it that's making it so difficult? And I have the 9 principles that lay out the whole change framework. But I think what I want to focus on in answering your question is the second of my principles, which is about attitudes. And I have a number of attitudes that I've identified through my own experience, but also in helping so many other people with this similar challenges. Certain attitudes that, what I say, cause self-inflicted stress. Because to me, stress is a huge piece of the puzzle that doesn't get looked at. So, yes, you can, try and follow a rigid diet, and you can go to the gym 5 days a week, but what are you doing to manage stress? What are you doing to manage your emotions that are causing you to go to the sugary foods and the starchy foods and overeating and overindulging that makes you feel good in the moment? Because what it does is it calms down those stress hormones that are coursing through your veins, and it calms you down long enough so that you can go back to what you normally do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
but you knew that this is what you were wrestling with. But I can imagine that a lot of people are just overweight because they like food.
Well, they like food, but they like food so much that they're not thinking about the consequences of the choices that they make.
Yeah,
they don't realize
the stress comes later when those consequences stare them in the face. But could it not be that when they're doing it, they're actually enjoying it, and they're thinking that, it's all a pleasure trip?
It's all a pleasure trip, absolutely. But you know how I look at it? I think of it, we look at, let's say we see a young person on a motorcycle, and they're wearing shorts and a T-shirt and flip-flops and no helmet on their head, nothing. They're just carefree and not thinking anything. But if that kid crashes, he's done. I mean, it's so dangerous, right? And people in their, 30s, 40s, 50s will look at this young teenager and say, like, oh, my God, was he crazy? No helmet. He's going to, he can kill himself. They'll look at him and think like he's taking his life in his own hands. I say that if you continue eating really poorly, not exercising, not sleeping well at night, being stressed to the max, not solving problems effectively, and you wake up every day and you don't feel good, you are putting yourself at risk of so many health problems. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you can do things to prevent it, where you can live a healthier and happier life. People don't realize. You don't realize that the moments that you're enjoying the food, of course, who doesn't want to enjoy the food that they eat?
Right.
People think that I have people say, oh, my God, if we invite Roslyn over for dinner, what are we possibly going to serve? And I'm thinking, I eat everything. It's not about not eating. It's about making wise choices. It's about making smart choices in the context of your whole day or your whole week, or if you're on a holiday or whatever it is. It's just about making smarter choices. And portion sizes. I mean, when you look at what a portion size used to look like in the 1950s and 60s compared to what it is now.
Oh, everything is big. Yeah, I was just say about some advertisement on television. I don't want to say the company because we're not giving free advertising out. but they advertise something that's a foot long for a breakfast or a lunch or a supper, like a foot long, like a foot-long roll with stuff inside it, which I'm sure is in the four-digit calories, easily. And you know what? There's also so many more choices for foods now. There's so many more fast food restaurants and convenience foods. It's very easy to eat less healthy now than it was, 30, 40 years ago. So, and it's almost like there's people out there whose job is to understand the science of food. And when those food manufacturers make that food, they know what they're doing. They know exactly what proportions of sugar, salt, and fat to put in the food so that it's almost like it's addictive. It tastes so good. I was involved with a company a while ago in a different capacity. And the fellow there was telling me that one of the things that company does is that when it produces a product, it test markets it to see if eating one of them causes the person who's eating it to want to have another one.
Yes.
And if that happens, then they know that they're on to a winner. So you're right about the addiction. It's the idea that they put into in marketing and actually making it. They put in some concoction of ingredients. Some of them really have nothing to do with the taste of the product. It's just whether it creates the desire. And I don't even remember what ingredients it is that they added into it, but that was a prerequisite, that it had to be something that made you want to have another one.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the clock now, Roslyn, so we have to take a break for the news. But when we come back, we'll continue our conversation, and hopefully we'll deal with some of the issues that come around the beginning of January 1st, which is, head start to the year, and I have all these good intentions. We're talking to Roslyn Franken, who is a motivational speaker, personal coach, host of her own radio program, best-selling author. She's going to be back with us in the second hour, right after the 10 o'clock news, so stay tuned.
Let's get back to the Rabbi, Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And just before we get to our very delightful guest, Roslyn Franken, I wanted to share with you a poem that was sent to me by Hugh Mann. That's his name, Hughmann. He's a human. He's Hugh Mann. Quite a man. And he sends me poetry from week to week. And this one, they're all good, but this one actually went right to the heart of things and was a poem about racism. And he wrote to me as follows, and I have permission from him, by the way, to share with you, our listeners, this poem on radio. In the spirit of honoring all people of color, I, that is to say, you, man, offer the following. And it goes like this. What is racism? As the pigment that darkens the color of our skin, hair, and eyes, melanin is a mixed blessing. It protects us from the harsh rays of the sun, but it also subjects us to the harsh gaze and words of racists, who blindly and blithely dislike and disrespect all dark-skinned people. Fusing ignorance with arrogance, avarice with cowardice, and caprice with malice. I did that purposely. Racism is a pigment of the imagination, beautiful, and an impediment to every nation, again beautiful. Racism is lunacy, not supremacy. Good for you, and thank you for sharing that with us. And on that note, I bring back our special guest, Roslyn Franken, to our program. Roslyn, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. Now, it's very interesting because you was talking about racism having to do with skin color, and you got a lot of people who go down to Florida specifically to become dark.
Not me. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, okay. But that I find quite interesting. But he hit it right on the head. It was quite short and to the point. So we're back, and in the second hour, I hope that some of you out there that are listening will call in, because one of the things that is very, shall we say, attractive about Roslyn is that she can give you the types of answers that you want to the very simple question of, how do I keep to the resolution that I made? Everybody probably around New Year's made resolutions. My resolution was to make no resolutions, but other people have other resolutions, such as, most likely, I would say that if out of 100 resolutions, Rosalind, give me a guess that maybe 90 of them would be about weight loss.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're probably wondering, okay, so I made a resolution either to go down 6 sizes or to lose 50 pounds or whatever. And I have no doubts that you really intended it well, and you have the best of motivations. But you and I know that come February, you're not going to have the same enthusiasm as you had January 1st. So please feel free to call in to 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility. 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number, and rbulka@cfra.com is our email address, to speak with Rosalind, and maybe she'll give you some pointers about how to stick with it, so to say, to make sure that what you've undertaken is not something that's going to be part of your unfulfilled history. And I understand, Rosalind, from what you were telling us, that you sort of analyzed and you came up with something having to do with stress. Did you think that you were under certain stresses when you were wrestling with your weight problem?
Absolutely. One of the just a moment.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No
dry
problem.
Throat.
Yeah,
I got a dry throat.
I would offer you water, but if I put it down the microphone, it wouldn't have a good effect.
I've got some right here.
Good.
One of the attitudes that I talk about with people is the I deserve it attitude. And for me, between the years that I survived my cancer and got on the scale and realized I needed to take the bull by the horn, so to speak, in those 10 years, not only did I survive cancer, I was downsized from my job 3 different times. I faced financial distress. In that time, my husband at the time came home one day and said he didn't want to be married anymore, didn't want to have kids, didn't know what he wanted, but he wanted out of the marriage. So that was a big shock. And then my mother passed away, and I was in a bad car accident. So a lot of different things that happened, I would say, in a short period of time. It seemed like every year there was something new I had to deal with. Excuse me.
Wow. And now you have to deal with a frog in your throat.
I know. Excuse me.
Right. So
what happened is, I took on an attitude, maybe not knowingly, but in looking back, what I think I did is I looked at everything that I went through and I thought, you know what? I survived cancer. I deserve a piece of chocolate cake. I survived this. I got through this. I got through that. You know what? Or, today was a really crappy day. I deserve to have this treat. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's what people do, right? They rush through their day. They're maybe in a job they don't like, or they had to deal with difficult people, difficult situations. Then they come home and you got to think, oh, what am I going to make for dinner? Oh my God. And you don't feel like cooking, and you're thinking, maybe I'll just pick up some pizza. Then, it's maybe 9 o'clock at night by the time you could sit in front of the TV and watch your favorite TV shows. And what happens? Out come your favorite treats, right? Out come the treats, because all you're thinking is, you know what? What a day. I just survived another day in the rat race. I deserve a treat. And out comes the cake and the cookies and the chocolate and the chips and whatever that feel-good food is, because you feel like you've earned the right to eat this stuff, or to have your favorite fast food or whatever it might be. So you've earned that right. So when I realized that I was doing that, absolutely, I thought, wait a second, this is not logical. And you know what, Rabbi, the most intelligent people who I coach, it doesn't matter how much education you have, how much money you make, who you are, what you do, doesn't matter. We all have this illogical part of our brain that has this I deserve it attitude. And I realized, I said, wait a second, I deserve to overstuff myself or to eat crappy food?
Yeah, or as a reward for your surviving a day, you deserve to make sure that you're not going to survive many more days because you're going to kill yourself with illnesses.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And I know a lot of people, they say, I deserve to eat because at least food makes me happy. So if they're not happy in other areas, at least with food, now I can have this joy. Can't wait to dive into the chocolate cake or apple pie or whatever it might be.
But you fingered something here which is very important, and that is that I think it's very telling that not that many people are actually happy. There are a lot of unhappy people in a world in which we have every reason to be ecstatic when we compare ourselves with other parts of the world. And yet, the North American people are extremely unhappy. And perhaps, we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Roslyn Franken. 613-521-8255. Star 580 on Bell Mobility is a free call, 800-580-2372, our toll-free number. rbulk@cfra.com is our email address. We're back right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, folks. We're at 613-521-8255 is our main number. Star 580 on Bell Mobility, a free call, 800-580-2372, our toll-free number. And rbulk@cfra.com is our email address. And we're in the middle of a conversation with a great coach in Miami. Did the Miami Dolphins approach you to be their coach? Because they're looking for a coach. Actually, we have a very interesting anomaly. We have a caller from Toronto that we're going to put on the line now. Bill from Toronto. Bill, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Rabbi.
How did you get a hold of us? Do you listen from Toronto?
Well, I subscribed to Roslyn's newsletter, and I saw some information that she was going to be on your show tonight.
Oh, there you go. That's very good. So you piped in how? Through the Internet? You went to 3scfra.com?
Yes, I've been listening on the Internet.
Very good. Okay. So, Roz, that's a compliment to you that from Florida to Ottawa, you attracted a listener from Toronto.
Cool.
No, cool. Warm. Cool for us, warm for you.
I'm ready.
Yeah. So, Bill, go for it.
Well, it's sort of like two questions in one.
We'll allow it. In Parliament, you can get three, so we'll allow at least two, not to worry.
Okay. So I've been trying my best to, watch my weight, get involved in a bit of exercise, but basically trying my best to do it on my own. But it seems that I seem to be sabotaged by both my wife and friends that I have. Now, in terms of my friends, whenever we're invited over for dinner, obviously people go through a lot of time and energy to put on a really nice meal and everything like that. But when I try to refuse all of the appetizers or not have any of the cheese and watch what I'm eating, or when they're serving the meal portioning is so big. When you were talking about portion before, when I say, can you just give me a small piece? It's almost like they're offended that I'm not having the full portion that they want to serve me, or I'm not having each of the 9 different appetizers that they're serving. So that's one part of it. The other part is when I go home, obviously my wife knows that I'm trying to lose weight and watch what I'm eating. But the meals that she's planning are either high fat, or again, the portions are really big, or at nighttime when she knows I like the little treats, she's putting them out for herself, but they're sitting there in front of me. So I'm finding this very, very difficult.
Right. So your question to Roslyn, I guess, is how do I overcome this?
Yeah.
So Roslyn, go for it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of meat in that question, so to speak.
By the way, is Bill's situation unusual or is it more typical?
No, it's very typical. It's very typical. And this is, a lot of the attitudes and a lot of the things that I talk about address exactly this. And this is a typical thing that people need help with because sometimes, it's hard to figure things out on your own because you're only in your own mind, right? So sometimes you need somebody to look at the situation and help you find solutions. So first of all, that first situation is what I call the plague of the people pleasers. And that's a big one that I was very familiar with when I was trying to, tackle my weight issues. And as you can see, being a people pleaser, when you're at someone's home and you feel like you have to eat everything on your plate, you're afraid to say no, and you don't want to draw attention to yourself to say, I'm on a diet, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And so you end up overeating, overindulging, making choices maybe you're not happy about and you feel badly afterwards, but you're so worried about offending the host. But somebody who's a people pleaser, the problem with that is that what you're saying to yourself is that the host's happiness is more important than yours. And that's where the danger comes in. And I remember coming up with a rule, and Bill, this is what I would say to you. If somebody else is deciding your portion size on your plate, like when you go to someone's home and they put this plate of food in front of you and they've decided how much goes on your plate, then by no means should you feel that you have to finish your plate because you didn't choose that portion size. So, it's different if you put the food on your plate, right? Because then you can take as much as you want to take.
Right.
Right? But when someone else decides your portion size, you don't have to finish what's on your plate just because they put it there. And if the person says, well, like if they make a comment, if they make a comment, you know what, so what? Trust me, they'll get over it.
It's just that it just is sometimes really awkward because, they can be very pressing, like, oh, come on, have a little bit more, or what's the matter, you didn't like it, or it's just almost like they're trying to make me feel guilty.
And that's another thing I talk about, guilt, right? The guilty overeating, the guilt and shame and self-loathing when you eat and you know that you've done things that you don't feel proud of later on. It's just so disheartening, and it wears down your self-esteem, it wears down your confidence, and it makes it harder to say no the next time. So when you're a people pleaser and you do things to please others, and you're so worried about hurting their feelings or offending them, but yet inside you're feeling resentful, you don't want to be doing this, it's about learning how to have boundaries, learning the ability to say no. Because by saying no,
right,
you're saying yes to yourself. You're saying yes to your health. You're saying yes to your happiness and your self-esteem. And if you can make choices in those moments and really think through what you're doing and be able to put your head to the pillow at night and feel proud of the choices you made, it's going to be a lot more motivating than every time you go to these people's house. Because you know what? That's part of life. You don't want to go on a diet and feel like you can't socialize with your friends. That's what a lot of people do. They go on these rigid diets, and then they can't go to their friends' houses, or they feel they have to bring their own food, or they have to give the host a whole list of foods. Well, I can eat this, but I can't eat this, but don't cook this, but don't cook that. You need to be able to socialize and live a normal life and still be able to eat healthy.
And let me just pipe in here something, Bill, and the ability, Roz was talking about the ability to say no and not to feel that your ego or yourself is on the chopping block, because that can only happen if you allow it to happen. In the same sense as, let's say, if somebody says something really nasty to you, like that you're no good or whatever case may be, a person may say it. That doesn't mean that you're no good. That only means that that's what they said. And if a person, on the other hand, feels that the road to their fulfillment is to put you in a position of having to swallow the stuff that they prepared, and you're saying no, and you don't want to say no because you're going to make them feel bad, but they're putting themselves in the position of making you look like the ogre. But you can reject that, and it's probably a matter of feeling good about what you're doing and about what yourself, and saying that nobody is going to get me off the track on it. It doesn't mean I have to be nasty in the way I say no. I mean, there's certain ways of nuancing, saying things like I've already had enough and I've enjoyed it, thank you very much, or I'm full already, or I'm ready for the next course, or I just whatever. There's no shortage of answers that you can give, but the most important thing is to come in there with the confidence that you're on the right track for what you're doing, and you don't have to apologize to anyone.
You know, a lot of times that falls into the situation of easier said than done sometime, but comes with practice, right?
Right.
Oh, there's the magic word.
Yeah.
You know, anything new that you do, just what Rabbi Bulka was saying, these principles that I teach are so much more than just about results in terms of a number on a scale, and it's so much more than just your physical weight. It's the positive living piece. Do you know how much weight you lose by just getting rid of the stress and worry about what other people think, especially in a situation like that? I have an example that I love to share. Like when I was going through this, that my husband and I went to a friend's house, and they served lasagna. And they served me this huge piece of lasagna, as big as to my husband and the other gentleman who was there. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, I don't want all that on my plate. That's way too much. And I said to the host, I said, do you mind if I just start with half of that? Because, and if I, want more, I promise I'll ask for more, but that's just a little too much for me. And do you know how much assertiveness it took me to speak up? I was so scared to say it. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to say it because I don't want to leave it on my plate and waste it. So I opened my mouth. I said what I needed to say. The host said, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. Gave me half the portion, and I was fine. And it was no big deal.
Right. And let's say the scenario, she would have said, no, I insist. If she would have said to you then, I insist that you have the whole thing, and whatever you want to leave, it's fine. How would you have reacted then?
Fine. Well, then I would just eat what I wanted to eat of it, and I would have left the rest. There
you go. So, Bill, you stay on because I want to deal with the wife problem when we come back, okay? We have to take a break.
Okay, I'll be
there. We're at 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility. 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number, rbulka at CFRA.com. And we'll continue our conversation with Roslyn Franken and a caller, Bill from Toronto, right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, folks. Our number is 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility. A free call, 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number. That's also free. rbulka at CFRA.com is our email address. And we have the great pleasure of having with us as our guest for the entire show, where she's doing a marathon 2 hours, and she has a dry throat to show for it, Roslyn Franken, a very well-known world-class motivational speaker, personal coach, host of the popular How to Thrive After 35 radio show, best-selling author of The A-List. And we have on the line Bill from Toronto, who had a two-pronged question, and now... So, Bill, have we more or less taken care of the first question?
Yeah, that it's going to take a little bit of work for me to sort of be have a little bit more stamina in standing up to these people and standing up more for myself, to put more responsibility on myself, to not feel bad, I guess, when they make me feel bad.
Right. So the other thing is to say you're doing this for your own health. So if anybody is trying to do something that's getting you off your game plan to have good health, so either they don't get it or they don't care, and in either instance, you have to be the one to carry the ball and say, hold it a minute. I'm responsible for my life, and nobody's going to nobody's going to intrude on that.
Exactly, and I guess kind of part of me thinks, like, you think these people would want to be more supportive of me. Here's a fellow that's, like I said, wanting to take my own life and my fate and destiny into my own hands and look after myself, but it's like they're trying to sabotage me without saying it that way.
On a conscious level, if you ask them, if you ask the guy, do you want me to live long? They'd say, yeah. You want me to be healthy? Yeah. Do you want me to be overweight? No. So why the heck are you stuffing me with food?
That's the question, Rabbi Bulka, is oftentimes it's in the communication, and that's a lot of what I do with my coaching. I mean, the first situation, that is something that I would coach people through, so that as actual situations come up, I teach them how to deal with specific situations so that they start to see the patterns of situations that come up. Oftentimes situations happen with the same people in your life over and over, or the same events or circumstances. So you start to realize and learn tips and tricks and techniques and ways to deal with certain situations. So that second part of it is about communication.
Right.
It's all about communication, and because sometimes people, if they see that you're having a bad day, the pattern, the dance that you have with your spouse might be that, well, they just know that when you're having a bad day, they say, like, here, honey, have a bowl of ice cream, because they think they're doing something good for you because they know that you're going to feel better. They may not know what it is you need from them or want from them. So if you go ahead and eat that ice cream, you're just going to perpetuate that cycle. So you need to break that dance. You need to start changing the steps and teaching them how to change the steps with you, because they're learning too, right? They have to learn that you mean business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so interesting. So Roz actually got into the issue with your wife. So can you articulate again, Bill, exactly what the problem is with your wife? I assume that your wife loves you and you love your wife. She wants she wants more of you to love. Is that the problem?
Well, definitely. I mean, she knows I'm taking it upon myself, and I've made a conscious effort to lose some weight. I want to be there for her and for our kids. So I'm doing my best right now at my age so that it doesn't, get any worse as I get older.
But are you exercising too, by the way?
Yeah, I'm doing, I'm not doing strength exercises, but I'm doing aerobics. I'm doing light exercises, 2 or 3 times a week. Rather than take the elevator at work, I'm taking the stairs. There's a bus stop right near my office building, but I walk, 4 or 5 blocks to the next bus stop. So I'm doing little things like this, right? But, every time, when I'm coming on, we do have some discussions about meals, like what would you like tonight, whatever the case may be. But it seems a lot of the meals are using a lot of the sauces and gravies and cheeses and things like that, which, I mean, it's not rocket science to know that these things are fattening things, and there are alternative types of sauces and recipes that you can sort of get the same results from without having to use those. And then later on the evening when we're sort of relaxing, I mean, she likes to nibble on, cheesies and nuts and things like that. But rather than what I think she could do is maybe have them earlier before I get home or have them in another room, she'll sit in the same room as I and put the bowls in front of her and eat them, and they're within eyeshot of me, right? And I'm finding it very, very difficult.
Right, so she's not insisting, though, that you do the eating.
No.
Right.
But, it's like if you're with somebody who's a recovering alcoholic in the same house as you are, and then you're sitting there having a beer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So, Roz, what words of wisdom do you have for Bill?
Oh, man, I would love to just sit with both of them and have them both in a room and have them have a conversation so that they can really understand where each person is coming from, because that's often the biggest missing link, because you're expecting her to start changing how she cooks, but she's not taking it upon herself. So you've got to get active and not have these expectations on her to figure it all out for herself. maybe you need to, be taking part more in the meal preparation. I mean, what do you think of that? Is that something that you could do?
Well, I've bought books like some healthy eating cookbooks, and I've made suggestions saying, here's a few recipes that I found that I think that would be good for us. I don't say just for me, but for us. And she may, make a recipe which is really, really good, and then, nothing again out of that recipe book for another 2 or 3 weeks, sort of thing. And even though I make suggestions, she says, "Oh no, I've already planned supper, and this is what we're going to be having." You know what I mean? So I'm finding it a little difficult. I guess going back to what you said about communication. Obviously, I may have to be a little bit stronger in communicating what my wants, needs, and desires are to have her on the same page as me.
Is she herself overweight, or is she okay?
I wouldn't say she's overweight. I mean, she's maybe 5 pounds overweight, 6 pounds over, but not a lot.
Right. So
not the same type of issues that obviously that I have.
Right. So, what Roslyn is saying strikes me as a very interesting issue. It's not only a communications thing, but it could be something in the nature of the marital communication, because obviously it's a situation where you have a problem, she doesn't have the same problem, and because she doesn't, the things that she is doing are being oblivious to your problem and in a significant way being very harmful to you. It would be something like you're being a diabetic and she gave you a sugar meal or something like that. And it's a question of, can you sit down with her in a calm, peaceful manner and explain to her the situation and the problem and what happens when the food comes out. There's got to be some sort of a middle ground, because to say to her, don't have this all together, when she in effect is probably watching herself and is just a little bit over, which is not that serious, would probably not be fair of you to ask. But why don't you, one good tactic that always works is to put the ball in her court and say, do you have any ideas for how you can help me? Instead of you dictating to her. Let her come up with the solution. This is my problem, my dear wife. And what can you do to help me? Because I like the fact that you are enjoying these things, but when you put them out in front of me, it creates problems for me. And I have this great problem because I'm overweight, and I'm sure you want me to live longer, and it's a tremendous issue. What can you do? What do you say, Roz? What is that a good strategy?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a conversation. It can even be more than one conversation. It reminds me of a client I had who had lost a lot of weight. She was doing extremely well, and she was cooking the meals for the family, and she, her husband retired. And all of a sudden, after months and months and months, she called me and she said, "Roslyn, I'm starting to put on weight." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because my husband retired and he's taken over all the cooking. And he loves it. He's cooking and he's looking up recipes and he's doing all this stuff, but he's not cooking the food that I want him to cook. But I should be so grateful that he's cooking that I'm afraid to say anything." So I had to coach her on how to have a conversation with her husband to let him know how much she appreciates the fact that he's putting all this time and energy into preparing these beautiful meals, but that, he has to be just a little more health conscious. It doesn't mean that every meal has to be, people think that when you're watching your weight that, you can't eat fat and you can't eat this and none of that. It's not about all or nothing, but, you can't be eating heavy, fattening foods in big portions and lots of sugar every day, right? So it's all about moderation, but the other person has to understand what your needs are, what you're looking for from them, and how can you work on this together as a team, right? That's what it's about.
Right. Like I know last week, for example, she made I was really, really nice sort of a casserole dish with sort of like cheese in it and a cheese sauce, which I really, really enjoyed. But when I mentioned to her, like, maybe what you could have done is made that same casserole, but had the cheese on the side so that, you could pour the cheese on your portion and I don't have to have it on mine. At that point, she said, oh, yeah, really good idea. I didn't think of that. So it's not that she's doing it purposely. I guess, for like so many years, she's been so used to preparing whales a certain way.
That's brilliant, Bill. That's brilliant. That's the right approach. Unfortunately, we have to take a break now. We have some more calls coming in, but I hope this interchange helped you.
Yes, thank you very much, Roslyn, and for the opportunity to speak with you.
Good,
You're welcome.
Thanks, Roslyn. Thanks, Bill. And we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we have a few more calls for Roslyn. 613-521-8255. Star 580 on Bell Mobility, a free call, 800-580-2372 is our toll-free number. rbulk@cfra.com is our email address. Actually, we have one specific call coming in for Roslyn right after these messages.
Now back to Sunday Night with Rabbi Bulka on News Talk Radio 580 CFRA.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final segment of our program, and it's been all with Roslyn Franken, coach, motivational speaker, host of a radio show, and author. And our number is 613-521-8255, star 580 on Bell Mobility, a free call, 800-580-2372, our toll-free number. rbulk@cfra.com is our email address. And we have Pasha on the line from Ottawa. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Rabbi. I'm well, thank you.
Very good. Good to hear from you always. You have a good question for Roslyn?
Many questions, but I don't think there'll be enough time for all of them.
Probably won't.
Yes, but what I've noticed is, and I hear from your description of your guest that she's a motivational speaker, but I noticed that she's been talking quite a bit about weight loss and so on. But what I notice is too much emphasis on weight loss also leads to stress, because I notice among many people, in particular women, that they try to lose weight, they don't lose it, they fail, and then they get stressed out as a result, and they go back to their old habits, and they again try again and again. So it looks more like trying to lose weight is a losing game and not something that is actually beneficial to them. So I'm wondering whether the emphasis on losing weight should be shifted more to actual physical and performance measurement, rather than looking at your weight on the bathroom scales every other day or every day for that matter.
Rosalind?
I am so glad that you said what you just said, because I couldn't agree more, because my goal is helping people not just to lose weight according to the number on the scale, because you're absolutely right. The stress and pressure that women and men put on themselves to reach a certain target weight. I have to weigh this, and I have to be this size in my clothes. And they get so stressed out that they do things to themselves that are not healthy. And depression and weight loss are very closely linked. A lot of people who struggle with weight also struggle with depression. And my goal is really to help people just lighten up, not just in terms of your physical weight, but your mental, emotional, and spiritual weight. It's not just about the weight on your body. And the thing is, why do women get so stressed about it is because they have these unrealistic expectations of how much they think they should weigh and how fast and easy they should be able to lose the weight. And that's where a lot of the problems come from. It's this striving for perfection and these unrealistic expectations that sets them up for failure right from the start. So letting go of all that stress and pressure and just looking at your situation and saying, okay, how do I need to eat better? What do I need to do? It's just the hard part is there's so much confusing information out there. And there's so many diets and there's so many options. And when I coach people, I'm working with them on helping them get their mindset in the right place. Because most of the time when they set out to lose weight, their mindset is not in the right place. They're not ready to really do the work that they need to do in order to get the results that are sustainable and healthy. Because should they be losing the weight? Some of them, absolutely. If you're too overweight and you're not eating healthy and you're stressed out about it, all those things are going to make your immune system lower. They're going to affect your digestion. They're going to affect your health in so many ways that it puts you at risk for health problems. So should they be trying to lose weight? Absolutely, but not in the way that they're going about it. If they're at an unhealthy weight and their health is at risk, absolutely they need to be taking off some of the weight.
So Pasha, we only have a minute or two more before we closing off. So do you have one more question for Roslyn?
Yes, you talk about unhealthy weight, and people, how do you define unhealthy weight? Because I feel that much of what a person should weigh, women in particular again, is set by a lot of fashion magazines and all kinds of nonsense, when actually the right thing should be that there are heavier people and lighter people, and just one weight or what the fashion magazine says is not necessarily the right weight. Not even what the BMI index says is also not necessarily the right weight. It's what keeps you fit and healthy to perform well physically and mentally.
Exactly. It's to me, a healthy weight is a weight that keeps you healthy and is something that is sustainable, that you can sustain that weight, so that you're not starving yourself to stay at that weight. It should be a healthy weight that if you're eating healthy foods, if you're in good health, if you're exercising, if you're taking care of yourself, that is fine for me. Because when you see those women in the fashion magazines, coming from me who survived cancer, I look at those women and I think, God forbid they get sick. They have no meat on their bones to fight with.
Right. And by the way, it's an interesting thing too, because for every one of these good-looking stories, when you read their biographies and you read about the hell that they went through because of the stress that they put on themselves to be so Hollywood lean or whatever the case may be, you realize that this is not a lifestyle that you would want. It's not healthy. No. It's not sane. There's nothing good to say about it. Pasha, thank you very much.
You're
very
welcome.
Insightful. Have a great week.
Thank you, and you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, very good points made by Pasha. So I want to read you a quote, Roslyn. It's from you. It makes no difference if you're a corporate leader, employee, salesperson, professional, volunteer, business owner, retiree, student, stay-at-home mom, or other. Guess you covered everyone. Regardless of your age, occupation, income, education, culture, background, or role in life, we all must strive to take better care of ourselves and do what is within our control to live the healthiest, happiest life we can, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, financially, and spiritually. This means making positive living habits for self-care, self-improvement, and overall wellness top priorities in our lives to achieve the levels of health, success, and satisfaction we so desire and deserve. So says Roslyn Franken. Very well put. Like you covered the whole thing in one paragraph.
Thank you. I just, you just touched before on there's so many people that are unhappy.
Right.
And life is too short. I mean, look how fast the last year went by. You blink your eye and you're celebrating New Year's Eve again. And if you can be happier, if you can be healthier, and there's things that you can do, then why not do them?
Right. By the way, Roslyn, do you realize we talked almost 2 hours and we didn't even mention the A-book and didn't get into the A-book, although you made some references to it. So do you have a website?
I have a website, and the easiest way to say it is the alistbook.com.
Is it all lowercase?
Yes.
thealistbook.com.
Yes, TAEALIST book.com.
And when they go into that, they'll be able to order the A-List book. Is that, you have another book too, don't you?
No, I have another book that I co-authored called Death Can Wait, Stories from Cancer Survivors. That's available from Amazon. But my book is available in paperback. It's also available as an audio program, and it's also available as an e-book. And those are all available on my website at thealistbook.com. And I want to offer something to your listeners, Rabbi Bulka, if I may.
Sure you may.
So anybody who orders a book, please mention, email me, go to the contact link on my page and let me know that you're from the Rabbi Bulka Show. And I would like to offer any listeners who are taking this seriously and who get my book, and even if they don't get my book, who are just taking this really seriously, I want to offer them a complimentary initial assessment coaching consultation.
Wow, that is great.
Yeah, that has a regular value of $89. So when you get the book, you're getting the book, but you're also getting an extra $89 value just by doing that.
Right, you're getting a piece of Roslyn Franken.
Yes, yes.
So you have been an absolute delight. And thank you very much for joining us, and good luck with all the things you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I just wish everybody a very healthy and happy New Year.
You got it. And good luck to you. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned to CFRA for all sorts of good stuff.
Thank you.
And have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.